This one was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Vince McMahon. I don't think that is really him here.
If that is indeed your real name.
What year was Ric Flair at his peak as a wrestler? I would define this as a time when he was both a great draw and promo, but before his matches became patterned and predictable.
Oh, God. Well, and that's kind of a backhanded way to end it on the way out. Rick did depend in latter years on a lot of repetition. I got to think 84 through 89, don't you? He never had a match purely as good as the matches with Steamboat again. But at the same time, from, 83 or 84 was when he really started traveling with the belt and working with everybody and seemed like he was in the best physical shape. And I mean, there was the matches with Wyndham in 85 through 87.
I would go back a little further to 82 or 83 because even the stuff he was doing in Dallas was great.
Well, yeah, true there. So, really pretty much the whole decade of the 80s. And I think the only reason, let's see, how old was he? He would have been, by the time that 1990 rolled around, he had just turned 40. And I mean, he was still working and working out and training at a high level for the rest of that decade, but he didn't. WCW was in turmoil. The WWF run only lasted a year and wasn't anything to write home about, as they used to say on Hee Haw. Just the 80s, he had all those great opponents, all those great matches, worked a variety of companies, went to Japan, had classics there. In the 70s, he had some great matches, but he was still learning at that point. When 1980 came around, he'd only been a pro for 8 years. That's about the time that if you're going to be a main event guy, you've probably got there by then. He'd already been there for fucking 5 years, but it was still he was a learning experience. So yeah, the 80s, pretty much the whole decade, don't you think?
If you had to narrow it down to 1 year that you thought was his best year, would it be 89 or would it be a different year?
Well, best year where? Best year at the gate?
Well, certainly not 89 best year at the gate.
Well, yeah, that's what best year in the ring, because not only the trilogy with Steamboat, but the program with Funk. But then again, he had programs with Wyndham from 86 to 87.
Yeah, those are great.
And those matches, as a matter of fact, there's another match that because I have the VHS tape, the Crockett Cup 87, I would show Flair and Wyndham from the Crockett Cup 87 in OVW and in training seminars, or give them to the guys as homework. The only reason that Flair and Wyndham wasn't the best trilogy of the 80s is because of Flair and Steamboat. Because those matches were incredible when Barry was in shape and his window was a lot briefer than Flair's, unfortunately. But yeah, so best year at the gate would have been either 83 or 86. 83 when not only was the first Starrcade, but everything just got hot. Dallas was on fire. He's main eventing fucking crowds of 20,000 people in a variety of places. Or 86, obviously, because that was Crockett's biggest year ever. But, the best matches. And God, then in 89, it was early 90. I was going to say he had that TV match with Pillman. That was so good. He and Arn had the match with the Rock and Roll Express. Him and
Luger was good in 1990.
Him and Luger
the bad finishes at times.
Him and Wyndham against the Midnight Express on the Clash of Champions season beatings in December of 88. He had a lot of different matches and a lot of better matches. Maybe he was, it was not only that he was that good at that point and he had the right opponents to work with, but also he was probably trying to compensate, knowing Flair, for the fact that WCW was hamstrung by being owned by Turner at that point. Business sucked. He was trying to will it to be better on the back of his performances, because Flair thought like that. So that, in the ring and at the gate was two different peaks.